welcome everybody. This is Darren with Komprise. I'm here with Krishna. We'll pause in a moment for introductions to Krishna, our featured speaker. Today's topic is cloud native access. What is it and why does it matter? And the subtitle I think is really important just to emphasize here. The goal is to get maximum value from your file and object data in the cloud. No penalty, no lock-in. Okay. So let's go right in. Before we dive into this topic of cloud native access, what it is and why does it matter, I want to just remind you all, we've done a series of these webinars this month. So if we go to the next slide, the first one we did was really setting up this need for smart data migration. And Steve P., who is in product marketing, went through really the story of what is a smart data migration for file and object data. We talked a lot about the importance of planning and then the advantage of the elastic data migration capabilities from Komprise. So that was the first webinar, really setting the groundwork and introducing Komprise. The second one actually took a step back and talked about preparing for a file and object data migration. We had Ben Henry, who's our head of customer success architecture, who works with some of the biggest Komprise customers, and he really did a deep dive into all the things you need to think about and prepare for in terms of rules and regulations, preparations, data discovery, topology. It was a really good session. I recommend you take a look at that. We have posted it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel and on our website. So that's really important to really understand your infrastructure, your network, and really do the right things before you even consider moving file and object data to the cloud. So today's conversation is going to be on now what? So you've moved data, you've figured out a plan, you've understand the importance of data discovery and doing it intelligently. Now we're going to talk about what we call really the importance of cloud native data and what that even means from a Komprise perspective and from an end user perspective. Let's just take a second to introduce our featured speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Krishna Subramanian. I am a co-founder of Komprise, and I'm very glad to be on this webinar and talking about cloud native access.
We'll walk through what does that mean? What is cloud native access? What are the requirements for it? Why is it important?
We have a lot of customers currently looking at cloud transformation. So definitely hybrid cloud is where many customers are focused. And one of the things that customers always think about is when moving data to the cloud, do they just continue doing what they were doing before? For example, do they just take the storage vendor that they were working with before and have that storage vendor, maybe move their data to the storage vendor's own file storage in the cloud, or should they take a different path? Where this becomes very important is when customers think about what should they do with their data in the cloud. Because the cloud is not just a storage locker. The cloud is really an active platform, as we all know. It has tremendous compute power. A lot of companies today want to get more value out of their data. The users want to run new kinds of analytics on data. And so cloud native access is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. And so how you migrate data to the cloud really matters because you could either migrate it in kind of a proprietary and limited way, or you can migrate it in a way where you can unleash the full potential of the cloud. And that's what we mean by cloud native access, when you can get access to everything in the cloud. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about it, Darren.
Yeah. First and foremost, let's just look at what is unstructured data management, what are the requirements there, and then let's go back into cloud native data. We also want to spend some time in a demonstration. So let's talk about requirements for unstructured data management. And we typically break it into three groups. The kind of the importance of visibility. Can you see across silos and make the right investments? Really understanding, we call it actually right placing data, but you have to see your data before you can actually make those intelligent investment decisions. Data mobility. Can you manage the sprawling data in files that you're managing and trying to deal with across a hybrid environment, increasingly a hybrid environment, multi-cloud, multi-storage, and really adapt quickly so that you can adopt new technologies as they come online. And then what we're going to talk about mostly today is the value. can you actually avoid getting locked in, and can you get a maximum return on your data? Anything you would say on these requirements, Krishna?
Most customers don't have a very good idea of what's sitting on their storage. So the first question is, what data do we have, and how is it growing? How is it being used? Second question is, how can we move it to the right place at the right time in the right format? And third question is, how can our users get the maximum use of the data wherever it lives?
How do you leverage the potential of the cloud? Because a lot of talk we've had in these webinar series is about how to get there, how to do it right. But now let's talk about actually, once you've moved data into the cloud, why it's so important to really be able to leverage the potential of that data.
When you move data to the cloud, it's really important that you can actually use all the facilities that the cloud has to offer. We all know that there's a lot of innovation happening in the public clouds, whether you're looking at Azure or AWS or any of the other major clouds. They're always adding more tiers of storage. They're always giving more cost efficiency. So the first question to ask is, hey, when I move my data to the cloud, can I take advantage of all the efficiencies that the cloud has to offer? And the reason this is important is because there can be a pretty wide variation in cost. So just to give you an example, if you look at file storage in the cloud and you just look at the cost of file storage versus a kind of a cool object storage tier, like if you compare the cost of an FSX tier versus the cost of something like Glacier Instant Retrieval on AWS, the cost differential is significant. The Glacier Instant Retrieval can be about 30 to 40 times less expensive than the tier of the file storage. So when you're looking at tiering in the cloud as an example, you want to make sure you can actually use all the different efficiency tiers that the cloud has to offer. So cloud native, if your data is going to the cloud in a cloud native format, you should be able to leverage any of the efficiency the cloud has to offer today and in the future. The second thing is, when you move data to the cloud in a cloud native format, you should be able to use that data not only as a file, but also as a native object, especially if you're moving it to an object tier in the cloud. So your access to the data should not have to go through your file storage layer. If it always has to go through your file storage layer, and if the file storage has to expose your data to you, you're locked in, and it's not maximizing the access to your data. The third thing is, how do you make it easy for users to search for what data they need and to use it to feed a data lake or to feed an application? How do you make it easy to leverage all the different AI and machine learning services like, Azure Data Lake or, Databricks or, AWS Comprehend or Redshift or all these different analytics services, most of which operate at the object layer? How do you make your data be able to leverage those capabilities easily? So cloud native is a way of moving data to the cloud without lock-in. It's a way of moving data to the cloud where it's not tied anymore to the file system that was originally serving the data. Cloud native is a way of tiering the data to the cloud where you can still see it from your original file system, but you're not beholden to the original file system.
I mean, that's a really good summary. I think these are really important points that aren't often considered. We did have a Gartner analyst recently say to us on your first point is that it seems these days you need a PhD to figure out cloud tiering, like which tier, which system, which option. It's pretty complex. So this is, I think, increasingly a critical point in message is to really make sure you're doing it the right way, which kind of leads us to our next slide, because a lot of people think, hey, why not just go with my storage vendor? I've been using them for a long time. Why not just take a storage-centric approach to cloud tiering?
Yeah. And, so if we look at the history of how storage solutions started, creating tiering, it goes all the way back to like hierarchical storage management days, where, within a storage environment, you could have different tiers of platters, right? You could have SSD drives, you could have SATA drives, SAS drives, and basically the storage operating system could move blocks of data around those different tiers, and it was all transparent to you, the user. And so that storage tiering, now many of those storage vendors are saying, well, we don't have to just move it within platters of our own storage. We can move it to the cloud, treat the cloud object storage as a platter inside of our storage. But, the problem with that approach is that it is not cloud native. And what do we mean by that? Well, if you used a fabric pools or a cloud pool to tier data to the cloud, what you're actually doing is tiering some blocks of data to a particular place in the cloud that storage vendor knows, and it's proprietary to that storage operating system. So the blocks that you've tiered to the cloud are meaningless in the cloud itself. So you cannot use any of the standard, cloud layers. Remember we said cloud native means you should be able to maximize your cost efficiency. Well, if you used a storage tiering to tier to the cloud, you cannot just move your data into something like Glacier Instant Retrieval or even to Deep Glacier because it is proprietary blocks, and you can only move it around to wherever that storage vendor has kind of configured as a deeper tier of their storage operating system. So your cost efficiencies are quite limited because you cannot actually leverage all the cost efficiencies of the cloud. The second thing is that all your access has to still go through the storage operating system. You might say, well, why is that a problem? I could run, NetApp or EMC in the cloud. You can run it in the cloud, but you always have to go through their operating system to get to your data. So you cannot directly go to the object layer and access data. You cannot have users directly use the data from their object layer without going through the file storage. And the reason that's a problem is because you're pretty much locked in. You're locked into that storage operating system, and you're locked into always going through it to get to the data. The third thing is that, remember, one of the reasons you're going to the cloud is not just so that you can, be more agile and not build more data centers. It's also so that you can leverage the compute power of the cloud. So using your data in the cloud is extremely important. And storage tiering is really just an efficiency technique inside the storage. So it doesn't actually expose your data to all the cloud services. It doesn't make it easy for you to search and extract data. It doesn't let you actually use object-based native cloud services on the data. So you really don't get access to the cloud. You're just using a piece of the cloud as a tier of your traditional storage system. So basically, storage-centric is really not a cloud paradigm. It is a file storage in the cloud is great to store files, but it's not your data management solution. It's a place to store files. And making your storage be your data management platform limits you from actually leveraging the power of the cloud. So storage-centric is really not a cloud-native solution. What you really want is to leverage the facilities of the storage to store files, because that's what it's good at, but use the full power of the cloud with an independent data management solution.
That's a great summary, which is a pretty good segue into Komprise. We talked about the importance of cloud native data and the importance of an independent data management layer really sitting across and, being able to move data. I mean, I think increasingly data mobility is a critical conversation you need to be having as part of your overall cloud migration. And we haven't even mentioned, edge data and how that's, collecting at such a massive volume. So let's spend the next few minutes talking about Komprise, and maybe we go out of PowerPoint and really show it. I mean, I think the key points to remember as we dive into a demonstration is Komprise is really one platform to manage your unstructured data, and it's independent so that you can see, search, and really use data across these silos. In other presentations and other demos, we talk a lot about the global file index, the ability to analyze, search, tag, and execute. We've actually introduced something new called smart data workflows. We'll spend today's demonstration mostly talking about the tiering, transparent tiering that Komprise delivers, and then, as we mentioned, empowering users with AI-ready data.
I'll just very quickly show the architecture and go to the demos. As Darren mentioned, Komprise does give you that independent data management layer. Basically, it's a cloud service. You can simply turn it on and then point it at all your different storage. Your storage can be across the hybrid cloud, so it could be in your data centers. It can also be cloud file storage or cloud object storage. You literally point Komprise at all of that. And Komprise has a hybrid architecture. When you point to stuff in a data center, Komprise deploys virtual machines, which we call observers, in that data center so that it can move data from your data center across into the clouds. And this whole architecture is completely scale out, and it's easy to set up, easy to deploy. You don't have to run any databases. You don't have to run any servers. You don't need any dedicated infrastructure, and you don't have any limits on scalability. It's a highly scalable, multi-threaded, distributed, fault-tolerant architecture, and elastic cloud service. And as Darren mentioned, as Komprise runs, Komprise not only analyzes your data, migrates and tiers and moves data, but it also indexes all the files and the objects into what we call a global file index. And so the reason for this is that through Komprise, you can search and find data anywhere easily, not just you, but also your users. And you can feed data lakes. You can feed AI ML applications. So you can actually use native cloud services on all your data very easily. And I'm going to show all of this to you in the demo. So I'm actually going to switch my view. Hopefully you can see my screen now. I'm inside my demo. And here what I've done is I have Komprise. This is the Komprise Management Console. And I can go in and I can connect Komprise to all the different storage that I have in my different sites. You can see here that we're connected to some NetApps, some Isolons, some pure FlashBlade, Windows servers, etc. And Komprise supports a wide variety of platforms. You can see here all the different platforms. This includes cloud solutions like Azure Files or AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Any of these you can pick and connect Komprise to. Once you've connected Komprise to all your storage, within minutes, Komprise actually gives you analytics on all your data. So here we can see that in this environment, we have about 2.5 petabytes of data. And we can immediately see what we call a kind of a donut, a heat map donut of the age of that data. The warmer the data, the more red it is. The colder the data, more orange and blue it is. So you can see here that there's very little data in this environment that is actually very active. So only about 16% of the data here is active. The rest of the data is pretty cold. It hasn't been used in a very long time. And this is pretty typical of most environments. In most environments, 80% of data is cold. And the problem with the cold data is that it's still consuming expensive storage and backup resources. So here you can see not only the age map of the data, but also what would happen if you didn't take any action. You can see here that Komprise is extrapolating for you and showing you that this 2.5 petabytes will almost become 4.3 petabytes of data that you would have to manage based on your growth rates if you didn't actually implement some data management. But in addition to all of this, Komprise gives you all kinds of analytics on the data, so you can see what kinds of files you have. This environment has a lot of video files, whether it's big files or small files, who's actually using the data, which users. Sorry? I'm offline? Hey, Darren, can you hear me?
Nope. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Can you see my screen still?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You can see who's using the data, which users, which groups, etc. But with all of this, we can now actually set policies. So we could say, well, maybe anything under, 6 months old, we want to send to the cloud. Maybe we want to send it to a bucket in Azure or a bucket in AWS. And as I set these policies, Komprise projects for me how much data would move and what my savings would look like. And I could set these policies through simple, age-based criteria, or I could leverage that global index and set policies actually that are more fine-grained. For example, maybe I know that my video data I could be more aggressive with. So I could say, find all the video data that the engineering group created, let's say in Boston, and let's move that out, move all of it out to the cloud, because we know that that data is pretty cold. And to set these queries, Komprise has something called deep analytics, where that global index that we created, you can leverage that index and you can actually create any query. So here we're finding all video files where the group equals engineering. But by any combination of metadata, you can actually create these queries and save them, and then use those queries to direct what Komprise actually does, to direct how it tiers data or migrates data or copies data, etc. Once we've set all these policies and we're ready to actually move data, all we have to do is activate the plan, and Komprise starts moving data based on our policies. Because this webinar is about cloud native access, let me show you actually what cloud native access looks like. So first I'm going to show you, once Komprise is tiering data, what that data looks like to your users if they're accessing it as files. So here I have a folder. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. I have a folder, and in this folder, I have a bunch of files, and you can, I don't know if you can see it well on the webinar, but some of these files have a little arrow next to them showing that they're not local files. These are actually files that Komprise has tiered as objects into the cloud, but you can still see them as files locally. And you might say, well, if you're doing this, will my application break? Can my application handle this link? And the answer is yes. Komprise uses something called dynamic links. It's a patented technology that uses native file storage mechanisms in order to transparently move the data and to maintain file and object access. So here, the data that we have moved to the cloud, like this is one that we have tiered to the cloud, it still looks like a local file. I just double click on it and it opens like a local file, but it's actually an object sitting in the cloud. Let me open one more. This is an MRI image. I'm opening it. You can see that it opens as if it were a local file, but this file is actually sitting as an object in the cloud. How do I know it's sitting as an object in the cloud? Well, let me log into the cloud. Here I'm logged into the cloud, and this is an Amazon console. I'm just logged into Amazon. There is no Komprise in the picture. There is no NetApp or Isilon in the picture. I'm just logged into the Amazon console, and I can go into my folder, and you can see that those files that I opened before, that MRI, this PDF file, they're sitting as native objects. I'm able to browse these through a standard S3 browser. And I can just click on it and I can open it. You can see that it's a JPEG file and it was brought in as an object into Amazon S3. So here I have file object duality. I have native access to my data in the cloud. These are not meaningless blocks. My actual files are available natively in the cloud without going through us or your original file storage. and they're also transparently available through your file storage. So we maintain transparent access and cloud-native access to your data. Darren, were you able to see all that?
Yeah, that was great. And this is where we always get a lot of questions. I know we're kind of running low on the times front, but let me ask you a couple of quick questions that have come in. So the first one is, what if I stop using Komprise? What happens?
Yeah, great question. If you stop using Komprise, what would happen is all your data is sitting on the whatever storage you wanted, and that would all stay the same. You can continue to access your data in the cloud because Komprise is not in the path. From your original storage, those links, it's just those links. When those get opened, only then is Komprise in the picture. So other than transparent access to the cold data from your original location, you have full access to all your data everywhere, and you can take Komprise out at any time.
Great. Let's just go to, there's a kind of a closing slide with some of the key points you mentioned, Krishna. I think it's just important to give people a quick summary. One other question I did get was about cloud vendors themselves. So how do they think about Komprise, or even storage vendors? Do we have partnerships? Are we an alternative? Like, what is how do we think about the ecosystem?
Absolutely. No, we are partners with the cloud vendors and with the storage vendors because at the end of the day, everybody wants customers to have maximum use of data. We are an advanced tier partner with AWS. We're available through the AWS marketplace if you want to use us with AWS. And we have many joint customers like Pfizer using Komprise with AWS. We're also very strong partners with Azure. We are available in the Azure marketplace as well. And also, if you are leveraging a program like the Azure Migrate program, this is a great opportunity where Azure actually funds the use of Komprise for you to migrate, file and object data into Azure. So at no cost to you, you can use Komprise with Azure.
Great. And there's a question, a quick one on FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Do we support that?
Yes, we support FSx for NetApp ONTAP. We can take data from any storage. So even if you have a non-NetApp platform on-premise or an older NetApp platform like NetApp 7, and you want to migrate it to FSx for NetApp ONTAP, we can help you do that.
So let's give us your final thoughts on the importance of cloud native data.
Yeah, definitely. Data is your corporate asset, and it's really important that we're not only managing the cost of data, but also the use of data. And this is where cloud native is extremely important when you're going to the cloud, because ultimately you want to unleash the full potential of the cloud on your data. So not locking your data into meaningless blocks of a file storage operating system is really important, I think, for customers, for your own use of data. And that's where cloud native data comes in. And if you have any questions on this, or if you want to try it for yourself, because I know we went through the demo pretty quickly, you can reach out to us there, and I think we have a few links on that here.
Yep. I think this series is really focused on this concept of a smart data migration. We want you to get to the cloud faster. We want to give you that easy button to make that possible, but there's a lot to think through. We think it's important to really analyze and understand your data before, as well as understand your network and infrastructure before moving to the cloud. And then once you're in the cloud, think about how to really take maximum advantage of all that this new infrastructure is going to provide for you. And that's really where the importance of cloud native data comes in. So you can learn more at Komprise on our website under Smart Data Migration. And as Krishna said, we'd be happy to jump in and do a custom demonstration, or we even have a free trial available on our website. So hopefully you found this useful, and we look forward to working with you and helping you really get to the cloud faster and get maximum benefit from the cloud once you're there. Thanks, Krishna. Great demonstration. Great discussion.